I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll have roll call. You want to do that? Yep.
Yes, my pleasure. Committee member and chairman Larry Sweeney.
Present.
Committee member John Ruggiero.
Present.
Committee member Mayor Widmer.
Present.
And committee members Gary Lauder and James McLaughlin are excused, and so is council member liaison Michael Lundquist.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is selection of the new chair and vice chair. Are there any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Larry and Mr. Gary. Larry is the chairman and Gary is the vice chairman.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Done. The next item is public comments, and this is for items that are not on the agenda already.
Hello, all. I am Christy Waldron. I live on 71 Heather Drive in Lindenwood, and I am here to appeal to you for some lights or some kind of an improvement at the crosswalk at Watkins and Middlefield, the one that goes to the park. I don't know, it's a dangerous intersection all the time. Having both walked and biked and driven past there, there's a lot of issues. It's shady on the side where the trees are, where the wall is to Lindenwood, so I understand that motorists have a hard time seeing. That's why I think some kind of visual blinking lights or something would be helpful, whether it's a sign or in the street. I don't know. The other day, I understand now it's been painted, but when the crosswalk hadn't been painted because of the paving the last couple of weeks, my kid was commuting over to the park for camp, and I followed him because he forgot his lacrosse helmet, and I almost got run over both ways crossing. I don't know if you heard the squeal of the BMW coming the other way while I was in the crosswalk walking my bike. It was interesting. So, I know you guys have a lot on your plates with transportation and all, but since we're investigating it for other areas or whatever, and if we have a little parcel tax money, I would advocate it be spent at that intersection, clean that up, and create a safe crossing there there's lots of nannies and strollers and parents and kids that go back and forth to that park all the time. And just, I don't really think that anybody means to cause a problem there, but, you could write tickets all day long and it's not good, so.
So what sorts of improvements do you think would be appropriate?
I don't really know the range of options, but, I've seen the lights in the street that light up, or the signs that light up maybe that's activated by a pedestrian, anything that's a little bit more than what we have. I don't think you need a signal to stop traffic particularly. I just think at certain times of day when people are crossing, it's hard to see them. And I think people it's hard to see the crosswalk. So we lost the sign too. I went and talked to somebody over at Public Works the other day. There used to be a big fluorescent marker in the middle, that signaled the crosswalk, but that's been missing for months and months and months. That was an improvement when it was there, because I think people miss the signs, and then you don't see the crosswalk designation until you're on top of it. Just something more.
Are there any other questions for Christine? Good, thank you very much. I think maybe we should put crosswalks in general and in fact there is an item that's kind of related to that on the agenda tonight, but
well, it might feed into a bicycle master plan and stuff too. I know a lot of kids that live on McCormick, they won't ride to Encinal even though it's close by, so it's more traffic on the road because it's difficult to cross there. And if that was improved or enhanced, it might fit into that kind of a scenario as well. But just for public safety.
All right,
Great
well,
to see
maybe
it
we can
improved.
put that as a potential item for the agenda and talk about that intersection, or that lack of crosswalk, dangerous crosswalk has come up before, so.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Sure.
Any other public comments that aren't on the agenda? All right. Approval of the minutes for the May 2015 meeting.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Could I suggest one clarification? And that is, we're under the Transportation Committee top priorities. Item 3 states, becoming reactionary to issues which arise, which I think doesn't quite capture it, because that's what we've always done in the past. So what I'd say is continue considering issues which arise. Rather, reactionary kind of has a negative connotation. Is that appropriate?
I didn't notice that.
Okay, so you amend with that?
Right.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved as amended. And so the presentation is next, is that?
I think we're gonna do,
Okay.
our city attorney's.
There's been a request that we move the item 6BB under new business up so that the city attorney can get away early. And that's on the El Camino Real pedestrian crossing flags. And Mike, I guess you were going to give us a background on that?
Well, yes, and included in your packet is a staff report. And so, you know, and from a traffic engineering standpoint, we took a look at it. We reviewed various programs that have been or are in existence. And, you know, based on our, you know, findings, you know, we're recommending that pedestrian flags are not, you know, used here in the town on El Camino Real. So other than that, I don't know that I don't have any additional information than what's already included in the report that was with your packet.
Did you want to make?
Sure.
comments, or-
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, the city manager asked me if I would come and explain the strong rationale behind not adopting these flags. First of all, they would be potentially problematic anywhere, but on a state highway, they're actually prohibited. Let me explain. Public agencies have broad governmental immunities from getting sued. They're very important that we protect those immunities. In essence, many times somebody files a lawsuit against us, we raise the immunities, and we get out of the lawsuit totally. So those are really important to us. The most common of these immunities arises from public employees and their entities that are exercising a right of discretion. And basically what it says is any public employee, and extended then to the agency, is excused from liability if they're exercising a matter of discretion. You can go one way or another, and whichever way you choose, immunity arises. And that's really important because that's things like building inspectors and public works personnel doing their inspections. So it's pretty important that we make sure that we don't abuse that right of discretion. Interestingly enough, there is no discretion regarding use of traffic control devices. The California Vehicle Code section 21401 notes that, quote, only traffic control devices conforming to Department of Transportation standards and specifications shall be placed on streets and highways. the definition of streets and highways is pretty much all the public streets, but particularly on state highways. And the reason I know that is because there's something called the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. That sets forth each and every one of the usable traffic control devices. Now, you can tell this is not the actual manual because it has 1,393 pages. Now, thanks to computers, you can search to see if there's anything that has a flag in its name. And actually, there is not. So by process of analysis here, El Camino Real is a state highway. We all know that, State Route, 82? Therefore, is it 82? Did I get that? Yeah, okay. Therefore, only approved traffic control devices may be used on that roadway. I'm pretty sure it would apply to Middlefield and Atherton Avenue and just about any place else. Approved traffic control devices have to conform to one that is set forth in this manual. Crossing flags by any name are not listed as authorized traffic control devices in the manual. Therefore, they may not legally be used on the roadway. If they can't legally be used, there is no discretion. So if we were to attempt to exercise discretion that does not exist by putting flags on a state highway, it's my strong belief that we've lost our immunities from anything that happens. Now, I think everybody knows we've had a number of accidents on El Camino Real, and we all would love to see a device that was safe. The problem is, this manual goes to great lengths to talk about what kinds of, the process for determining what devices are deemed to be safe. And every device that you've seen on a major highway, up and down El Camino Real, what do they call it? In-ground IRL or something.
In pavement lighting.
Yeah, in roadway light, IRLs, in roadway lighting, the things that flash in the crosswalk. I think that's what the last speaker was talking about. Those are in the manual. Stop signs are in the manual. Not just, you can't have a blue and yellow stop sign. Mike might like that for Go Bears, but you cannot have one. It has to be red and white. It has to be fluorescent. All those standards are set forth in there. If it's not there and you put one up, you now assume the liability because you've abused the discretion that you might have had under the manual. So, as much as I would love to support anything that's maybe out there a little bit, in this kind of a situation, we just cannot get behind it. Staff strongly objects to it because it's just like we become the insurance company for everybody that goes marching across, and everybody is stopped there, and they step out in front, and the one person doesn't stop in the last lane and nails them. And if that person has a flag, thinking, I have an additional level of safety. I mean, John will tell you, people think crosswalks stop cars if you're in it. And that's sometimes a fatal mistake because crosswalks don't stop anything. They just tell people to be careful. And if you're not being careful, it's going to be a problem. So as much as we'd like to, say, gee, if you want to try it, we just can't get behind it.
So those remarks were mainly about El Camino. Do you feel the same arguments would apply to Middlefield Road?
Absolutely. It's the law says streets and highways, and when you read the Streets and Highways Code, it's a street and highway is basically anything that's paved that shows on a map. As long as it's a public roadway, look, and I know they are using them in a number of places, but when they do that, they're accepting the liability and they're losing their immunity. I just think it's foolish.
So when Menlo Park did it by the library there across Ravenswood, they still have the flags there, although they have put in now the blinking lights in the road. But they're sort of accepting the liability for having done something that I guess isn't approved officially.
And sometimes jurisdictions do that. The best example is the city of Carmel. They have streets with trees right in the middle of the street. they know it's a liability, and they're willing to do it because trees are sacred and they're Carmel. But this is a little bit different. This one is a street that we know it can be unsafe, and we know that the speeds can be excessive, and we know that people, it's a long way for them to cross. And so there's a lot of factors there. If it were Encinal School and they were crossing at the school or something, even there, you know that we've all seen the crossing guard with the little sign. That's in the manual. It says you can have a crossing guard. In fact, the only place that mentions flags are you can use a flagger during a construction zone, and you can hand the flag to one car that then passes it to the control person on the other end. That's the only flag that you can use in California as a traffic control device.
Okay. Any questions? So, is it then appropriate as the next step for us to basically make a recommendation that we would support the staff position, the staff's recommendation? Would that be helpful for the committee to?
I don't think we need to do anything. If you're not gonna, if you're gonna decline to make any kind of motion about moving forward or having council explore it further, but I don't think that's gonna go anywhere, so.
Okay, so we can just say thank you very much and move on.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Bill?
I wouldn't do that.
So and now can we go to the presentation?
Yes, I'll go ahead and give Jeff a call.
Good evening, Crossroads Software.
Hi, is Jeff Cullen available?
Well, this is Jeff. Hi, Judy.
Hi, Jeff. So I've got you live and I think we're set and ready to go.
Okay, very good. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
All right. I expect to take about, 10 minutes or less. In fact, I'm going to even set a timer so I don't run over don't overstay my welcome, as it were. So, all right. First of all, thank you so much for letting me take a few minutes to show you what it is that we do and what we can do for the city of Atherton, or is it the town of Atherton? Crossroads Software has been doing one thing for 23 years. We do software for reporting and analytics of traffic collisions and traffic citations. It's the only thing we do, and we have a fair number of clients in California and other states as well. But in California, we have about 200 police departments that use our software and about 300 agency traffic engineering departments that use our software. Everywhere from large agencies like San Francisco and San Diego and Los Angeles County Sheriff. Las Vegas has been a user for 13 years. And then right down to small agencies like Buellton, I think, has 2 officers that use our software, and everything in between. So the main components to our software, the first thing I have up on the screen is our report writer. We've just recently redone this over the last couple of years, and it's really caught on like wildfire with the new version because it's for officers to write collision reports and do all the associated documents that go with a collision report. And the one thing we did when we rewrote it was to make it as straightforward as possible to use. And an officer can come in and write a collision report. We've made it look exactly like the hard copy on screen, which if an officer knows how to fill out a collision report, all he's got to do is fill it out right there, everything that goes into it. There's a lot of little helper things in here, too. For example, the streets, of course, are in drop-down lists, and as they start to type, it will match automatically. And
Jeff,
it'll...
can I have you pause just one moment?
I'm sorry, sure.
Is there a way to enlarge the screen, either from your end or our end?
There isn't. What I can do is I can try to change the resolution on my screen, which will, let's see here, see if I can change that. I can make it lower resolution, which will, there won't be as much that fits on the screen, so we'll scroll around a little bit more, but we'll see if I can do that. let's see, resolution.
Can you go to a full screen mode?
Let me try that first. How's that? This is full screen mode here, but it's still the same size, you know.
Is
So.
there a way for me to get rid of the GoToMeeting chat?
Oh, sure. The GoToMeeting panel has a little double-headed arrow next to the close button. They're like at an angle. It's invisible to me, so I can't see it.
I was able to hide that. Okay.
Yeah. So are you able to hide it there?
I was able to hide that.
All right. Is that any better, or is it still too small?
Do you guys want?
Let's just bring the resolution down a little bit here and see. Let's try to apply that and see what happens here. Well, let's leave it at that for now and see how we do.
Either that, or if the members want to come down and get closer to the screen, if that would be helpful, you're certainly welcome to do that during the presentation.
Let's see. Yeah, that makes our my icons and everything bigger here too. So hopefully that's a little bit better. So is that a little bit easier to read?
Yeah, I think that's better.
All right. Well, the report itself, as I said, is set up to it's just like hard copy. An officer can actually right-click on any field as well and pick CIM, which is the Collision Investigation Manual entry on how to fill out that particular field. And the CIM is the document put out by the California Highway Patrol that tells officers exactly how to fill out the report. So, and I won't go into excruciating detail on this, but we've set it up so that, for example, if an officer hits the type of party, like pedestrian, for example, then it blocks out the things that would be inappropriate to enter, like vehicle year, make and model, etc., and puts in the appropriate vehicle type. On the second page, of course, the coding page, you can select the appropriate boxes, and of course there's the injured passenger witness page as well, and a function, of course, that copies over all the information from page 1, so it eliminates any duplicate entry of information on it too. So that's our collision report writer. It's got a review process in it. But in addition to the review process, I should say there's a lot of other little features too, like we can do a validation against that and see what fields the officer's left out or which things he put in that maybe conflict as well. And he can correct those things before submitting it for review. And when an officer submits for review, he just clicks on it and says, submit for review, and it'll fly over to the review box where a reviewing officer can come in and look at it, run validation rules, and even edit it if he needs to and request changes to it. We have functions for producing a narrative with a report. So if you say write a narrative, this one already has a narrative. But if I go to my attachments, I can take my narrative and get rid of it. Ask me 3 times if you want to delete something. I come in and say write a narrative. We have narrative templates, including an auto-generate template that you can come in and fill out additional information that would ordinarily be in a narrative for a collision report that's not on the collision report form. And you say create document, and it's actually opened on my other screen here. It takes information on that collision report and information from the pop-up and gives you a good head start on writing the narrative as well. So we also have a sketching tool for doing the diagram or sketch, and you can do the truck bus supplemental, any other attachments. You can do a full, complete collision report and submit it for review, goes through a reviewing process, and once it's approved, it ends up in the approved box. And when you print preview these, it puts all those different documents together, the collision report itself, and of all things, by the way, there's 7 possible components to a collision report. There's any cover sheets, which most people don't use, the 555 or the PDO form, we had that too, the 55503, property damage only. Any drawings or sketches, you can have as many as you want. Then the narrative, any other attachments and supplementals, and you could include photographs as well. And these are the order that they appear in the actual report itself. And if you were to print preview the report, it takes all those documents, combines them, and into a single PDF, numbers the pages, and then you can print the hard copy report for requesters of that report, or process it in any other way as well. We also, by the way, automatically watermark that report as a draft unless it's been approved, although you can shut that off if you want to. So in any case, that's the report itself, and it's generating that PDF. So that's the report writer. We've tried to make all those menus very straightforward in that we realized that over the years our system had gotten a bit complex over 23 years, adding all these additional features that people wanted. And we decided, well, let's break out the analytics into a separate program and set up the report writer. Oh, by the way, that opened up my other screen here. Set up the report writer to make it very straightforward so an officer could actually use it without any training. You know, we asked ourselves, can we set up the menus and the entire thing that an officer could use it without ever, this is actually a real collision report here. Apparently somebody hit a bicycle in a parking lot. And the draft is, the watermark is configurable for size, phrase, color, anything you want there too. So, or to eliminate it altogether. So that's the report writer. The reason people use our software, even though the report writer is, when I say it's pretty great, it is the best report writer that's out there. No RMS company has anything that even approaches it. No one else has done anything like what we've done, but we've specialized in this one thing. But the real reason people use Crossroads is for the analytics part of it. And the analytics are set up as well to try to be intuitive to use. If I go to collision queries, cutting right to the chase, I might go to intersection high incidents or mid-block high incidents and say, give us a report listing, and here's the top locations. This is real data, by the way. These are your, I took the liberty of loading your historical records since we're going to do that for a project, and street name verifying them so they're accurate for location-based queries. And Middlefield at Oak Grove is your number one location with 36 collisions over that date range I queried. Middlefield at March and right on down the list. So if I wanted to look at Middlefield and Oak Grove in more detail, I might go to the intersection historical. This is a list of all the streets in your city. This is a list of everything that crosses Middlefield, Oak Grove, and I could do a report listing. This just show me all 36 collisions, 60 of them were injury and none fatal at that intersection. And if I wanted to do a collision pattern diagram, I could diagram them out and see what's happening here. Now, this gives us information that we didn't see on that report that I just opened a minute ago. These little guys running for their lives on here, those are pedestrian collisions, and it looks like there are 3 of them in here. Little bicycle symbols of bicycle collision. Hollow arrowhead are daytime, solid arrowhead are nighttime. So what's happening here is purely a daytime collision problem. And the problem here is a series of approach turn collisions and rear-end collisions on the south approach. And they're being caused by, well, the primary collision factors below each one of them, unsafe speed, etc. You know, I want to look at this another way. I'm going to go to our pie charts and look at a breakdown of primary collision factors and collision types. So at this intersection, the number 1 cause is actually auto right-of-way violation, and number 2 is unsafe speed, and then on down from there. Broadside is a predominant collision type with rear end being close behind after that. So what I've done in a very short period of time is I got a list of our top locations, and I broke down one of those locations to look at the causes and the types of collisions. So if I were going to prevent collisions at this location, I'd be looking for people that are running the red light or speeding, and that are and their driver behaviors are that causing rear-end collisions, and not just rear-end collisions, but rear-end collisions on the south approach in particular. So if I was going to position myself out there to do some enforcement, I'd be looking for this type of behavior, and or people who are, for example, here these people are turning left and people coming through, and they're not obeying. Somebody's running the signal there and not giving someone else enough time to get through. So, all right. It's got plenty of other things that it does, over 100 different queries and reports. If I wanted to see all of my DUI collisions, let's say I was going to do a DUI checkpoint and I wanted to know where our DUI collisions were happening, I could say, show us everything in that date range where the primary collision factor is DUI. I could just punch the button that says Google Earth, and it would bring up a Google Earth map of those DUI collision locations in the city of Atherton. This is real data. This is what's really happening out there. So you can see where your DUI collisions are. You could click on any of these as well and get information about that DUI collision, including the location, the report number, primary collision factor, collision type, hit object. It's funny how those objects start to move when people start to drink. So single party crash, there's a lot of them are with DUI. And this one's a 2-party crash. So and you can zoom in as close as you want on these, and it gives you the location of these collisions. So we could do that high incidence query that I did too, showing our top 10 locations on a Google Earth map. So there's a myriad way you can break these down. Maybe I want to see all our collisions involved with pedestrian or bicycle, and I can run that as well. I could see a Google Earth map of that too. I have to save it. We'll just call this PEDS, and up comes our Google Earth map of pedestrian and bicycle locations. So we can break things down by time of day and day of week, injury degrees. We even have the Office of Traffic Safety Schedule C here for your grant applications and for doing your grant reporting. So if I were to look at 6 months worth and do the Office of Traffic Safety Schedule C, you see the breakdown of all the collisions of the various types that they want for their stats. So, and in a nutshell, I've already overrun my 10 minutes, but in a nutshell, that's what our system does.
Hey, Jeff, could you respond to a couple of things I think that would be nice for you to cover? This is Ed Flint.
Hey, sure, of course.
Here they are. Cost savings for the officer's time in report writing, the RIMS interface and populating the Crossroads software with the data we already have, and then the data-driven management tool that this provides for us to focus our traffic enforcement.
Sure. The officer writing a report, an officer who's experienced can write a handwritten report pretty quickly. So the time savings are really in the review process and also any modification process, because you can edit a report much quicker, of course, if it's done electronically. But the cost savings really comes in doing the additional documents with it, like writing a narrative instead of writing it from scratch, using the narrative templates for that. We also allow you to produce diagram templates too and sketches, so that he doesn't have to draw every intersection out every time. It's already got the basic layout of it, and he can just drop his symbols in there. When I see writing the report doesn't save much time, well, there actually is a lot to it when you're using drop-down lists when you're entering items too. It does make it a lot easier, and it makes it a lot more accurate instead of just we see people put in things, incorrectly in safety equipment and airbags. So making it right the first time is a big, huge savings as well. So when you have a tool that looks just like the hard copy especially, officers really like to use that. They don't like having to learn an entire new system. Now as far as the interface to RIMS, we have a great working relationship with the folks at Sunridge, and our data is set up. Part of this project would be to set up the interface where every night it just fires off a load of the data into the RIMS system, and there's accepts it, so it's in your RMS as well for lookups. Now, having it in the RMS and not having your data enter from a hard copy, of course, is a big time savings as well, and it's a lot easier and more accurate when when a document is going in directly from data that is pulled from drop-down lists like ours. It's extremely accurate. Whereas trying to read officers' handwriting as your data inputting into a system like RIMS, of course, not only bogs you down, but there's room for inaccuracy there. Now, when you're running stats in RIMS, you would rarely do very much in traffic collision stats if you're using the Crossroads analytics software. But, of course, when you're doing summary totals of everything that's happening citywide, number of fatalities and homicides and serious crimes and different types of things, it's nice to have everything in one place. Plus, when you're looking for an individual and you're looking up names, of course, that's where you really want things in one place. If you're looking for a vehicle, in a hit and run or, some other crime that's unrelated to a collision at all, sometimes those things end up in the database in Crossroads because they, people who are, it's a wealth of information that goes into it, into a collision report. Crossroads also has data entry screens for citations if you choose to use those as well. And many departments data enter every traffic citation into Crossroads because there's a whole menu of stats for running against your traffic citations. But also, there's the search tool, too, where you're saying cite general query, and you can look for a guy. You can say, show me all citations written to anybody who's male driving a red Ford with a W in the license plate, for example. So all that, a huge amount of time savings versus poring over data as well. So now the analytics. For running analytics, of course, the time saving here is probably bigger than anything else because a lot of departments do these not only by hand, or maybe they're doing them in an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. They're subject to a great deal of inaccuracy and also differences in definition. Like you say, well, this is an intersection-related collision versus a non-intersection-related collision. Crossroads standardizes all of that. Now, the time savings there is not only huge, but there's another savings as well, and that's liability. The other reason that people use Crossroads is to, besides grant application, grant reporting, and also being able to focus your limited resources where you're going to do the most good. The two other things that people use Crossroads for are focusing those limited resources in protection from liability. I'll give you an example of each. A number of months ago, the traffic sergeant at Costa Mesa PD called me on a Saturday morning. He happened to have my cell phone, resourceful guy that he is, and he said, "Hey, we're doing our DUI checkpoints tonight, and I want to be able to, determine where we're going to put our checkpoints." And I forget, how did you run that query again to show me where our DUI collisions are? And I did exactly what I showed you here. I entered the date range, and I selected driving under influence, and we did a Google Earth map, and he said, "Great, that's exactly what I need." Well, sometimes you have to protect yourself from people who are who want to insist that you're putting your DUI checkpoints in locations other than where you're having DUI collisions and for another purpose. Pomona was in a big lawsuit for placing their DUI checkpoints. They were accused of placing their DUI checkpoints where they could impound the most vehicles for people who didn't have licenses or were not registered. But they had to prove, actually, and they did it with Crossroads, that they were placing their DUI checkpoints where they were having DUI crashes. So it also lets you focus your enforcement effort to where you're really having problems and to see what those problems are instead of just generally trying to blanket your area. So that's a big cost savings there, letting you focus on what's really happening because no one has more resources than you know what to do with. The second part of it, protection from liability. A great example was Fresno PD called me last year and said, we need you to log in and run something on Schaefer Boulevard for us. And I said, well, you guys know how to do this because, I trained you in the use of it. They said, yeah, this is a really high-profile collision. There was a 7-year-old boy who was killed by a drunk driver on Schaefer Boulevard where the bike trail meets Schaefer Boulevard at a sharp angle. And the family had hired the highest-profile personal injury attorney in the Fresno Valley and was already doing press conferences to kind of taint the jury pool, I guess, and to say that, this is a dangerous location and the city's done nothing about it. So the city should have some part in the liability. So I logged in and we ran some pie charts and bar charts and everything on Schaefer, bicycle collisions, DUI collisions, pedestrian collisions. There wasn't much happening. There was a DUI collision in 2009, no bicycle collisions within a half a mile, no pedestrian collisions within a quarter of a mile. And so we output some stats. The chief was giving a press conference in 2 hours from the time they called me. And they needed me to run it just to corroborate what they'd already done and to make sure they were doing it right because it was a very important event. So we output some documents. The chief gave his press conference, and that was that. A couple of months later, we were training the San Francisco Police Department in the use of our software, and the guys from Fresno were kind enough to come up to San Francisco and help us train the guys there. And because there was, both are pretty large departments, and the guys in Fresno love a road trip. So they came up and we were doing the training, and I used that example. And the guys from Fresno said, they were dismissed as a party to that lawsuit. And it wasn't because they used Crossroads. It was because they had accurate, timely information when they needed it. So, and that's when people sue the city, they don't sue them for $5,000. They want a lot of money. So that protection from liability goes a long way. Other questions?
I should have asked you to give an introduction of why we're hearing this, but is this something the police department is considering using?
It's pretty much a done deal, and a part of it is, part of the rationale for this is input from the transportation committee over the years. We'd like more data and be able to run it out in a way that made sense. And so we put this in front of the council, and they approved it in the 15-16 budget. And so we've done the PO, and Jeff is coming our way to start the training and to install the software for us. So it's a done deal. So we just wanted the transportation committee to be aware that, hey, we have it. There was discussion with this committee about it, and we think this is going to be a really good thing for us given all the traffic issues that Atherton has.
We're looking forward to doing a project there. We've, I've dedicated my life, the last 23 years of my life, to this thing and our staff. We have a staff of people who are experts in just this thing. It's all we do. And that's why we have so many agencies that use our software. And it is the premier tool for traffic collision reporting and analytics. There's nothing like it.
Are there any comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Report writer demonstrate that? And is that available as part of, you know, a hard copy so that you can see, you could, you know, give that to somebody who is interested, like an insurance company?
Exactly right. And I'm not quite sure. There's a lot of reverb in the room, so I'm not quite sure I heard everything you were asking about. But you were asking about, I'm sorry, writing a collision report and the hard copy report you were saying for.
You talked about that you could make a sketch.
Oh, a sketch, right? Okay, good, right. And this is not our sketching software is not. I'll go ahead and bring one up here and we'll actually do one. Our sketching software is not reconstruction software. There are much more accurate and better tools for that. But if I was going to do a sketch with this, I'll just say attachments, make sure there's not a sketch already. There's not one here. And I say diagram or sketch. I could choose a template if I had any here. I don't have any templates for these streets, but I'll just say create the document, and it will launch the sketching tool. And the sketching tool is written, once again, to be pretty intuitive to use and give everything you need. There's the sketching tool. We can go ahead and just about anything we want here, and increase the number of lanes or decrease the number of lanes, and we can draw in left turn pockets, things like that here. But the tools are over here where you can just drop things in. So if I've got signs or traffic signals or other things here too, I can just drag those in, and I've got combination symbols for different vehicles and different crashes. Or so if it was an approach turn crash here, we can just drag it in and move it to where it's appropriate. You can there's all kinds of different objects they let you add to the scene so that you can identify the location. Just about everything you could possibly imagine. And as far as vehicles, if you wanted to use, instead of the CIM symbols, if you wanted to use different vehicle types, you have every possible vehicle known to mankind, from cement mixers to emergency vehicles and ambulances and tanks and motorcycles and even the Amish horse and buggy, if that's important. So, and it automatically fills out the header information, report number and date and time and officer ID, all those things. And when you're done with that sketch, you go ahead and just save it. And now it's part of the document package for this. So if I say attachments, it shows us our drawing here. I can edit it from here. Or if I do a print preview of it, then it also does it'll show it in the part of the PDF document. Is this meeting in a train station, by the way?
No, it's just in a phone line.
Okay.
No, it's a train.
All right. All right then.
Well, it's a very nice package, I think, and I'm sorry, particularly Gary's not here to see this presentation, because it looks like it provides a lot of the data that we've been interested in seeing, and to do it in a graphical format makes it a lot easier to understand. So, yeah.
Great.
You asked about providing documents to insurance companies. That's also another service that we do offer, and we can talk about that later on, but we actually coordinate with LexisNexis that acquires more than half the collision reports nationwide for insurance companies, and we do have a system that can upload them automatically to LexisNexis, the releasable reports, as they're approved in Crossroads, and that could save your people at the records counter some time as well. But that's something certainly you can avail yourselves of too. So, and there's no charge for that system at all.
So, Ed, right now we can go on the website and look at some things about where accidents are happening and citations have been issued right now. Does this integrate with that?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. RIMS, we're on RIMS. Most of the agencies in the county are on RIMS, and many of them are on Crossroads. But Jeff, they talk to one another, correct?
RIMS, yeah. The data can upload from RIMS, from Crossroads into RIMS. Although one of the questions going back in the emails last week, of course, was does Crossroads, talk to RIMS, and can data go from RIMS into Crossroads? And John Bourne from RIMS was kind enough to point out that, well, most people actually write it in Crossroads and go into RIMS rather than the other way around. But if you'd prefer to do the other way around, like if you're using the collision report writing in RIMS and everybody who's trained in it and really liked it and didn't want to change, then of course, we could arrange to make it go the other way, but most people go from Crossroads to RIMS. So, and that's typical of almost every RMS system. Documents would flow from Crossroads to the RMS.
Yeah, our traffic sergeant, Anthony Kopler, is sitting here, and he's shaking his head, yes, we'll be writing it in Crossroads because it's more user-friendly.
Right. Yeah, because we specialized in this one thing, so we've gotten a lot of feedback over the years from a lot of agencies. So.
Well, this is great. Thank you very much. I think we'd better move on the agenda, but I really appreciate your taking the time, and it's a very impressive package.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, and I look forward to working with you guys.
Same here.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a great night.
Okay. Moving on to regular agenda, old business. If it's all right, I'd like to move item B up now because I know Marion's here because she wants to hear the discussion on that. This is the status of the Menlo Park Wayfinding Project and the letter from Lindenwood Homes. Do you want to hear from Marion first, or do you want to talk? One of the issues from the last meeting was that staff was going to look at the proposal and compare it to the bicycle pedestrian master plan and see how it compared.
Sure. Well, we actually never got that far, and I'll tell you why. So as a result of the last meeting, representatives from Menlo Park came and presented the idea of a wayfinding project. And then along the way, this was agendaed with the Lindenwood Homeowners Association. And as staff, we actually had a meeting set up with Menlo Park for them to review kind of their methodology and logic for the various routes that they were looking at. One of them being through the Lindenwood area. After receiving the letter from the Lindenwood Homeowners Association, which clearly voiced that they do not support it, we got that information to Menlo Park, and then as a result of that, Menlo Park is now just looking at other alternatives other than going through Lindenwood. So, and we will be working with them to, see other improvements that we can make along Middlefield to try to accommodate, bicycles and pedestrians along Middlefield.
So there's really no action required?
No, there's no action, and again, at this point, Menlo Park has abandoned, the idea of potentially going through Lindenwood.
Mary, do you want to?
All I can say is thank you. We just couldn't believe that it was being proposed to go through Lindenwood, an area, and this specific area at Green Oaks where it's been so dangerous. So, thank you.
Good, thank you, Mary. Any questions? Okay. So let's go back to item 6AA, this status report on neighborhood traffic management plan.
Sure, the neighborhood traffic management program is moving forward. In April, the City Council approved the consultant services agreement with Hatchmont McDonald, who is a consultant through a competitive process the town selected to put together the plan for City Council review. What was handed out to you earlier this evening is we actually have a council report going to City Council tomorrow. And basically the purpose of that council report is for the City Council to get an overview of neighborhood traffic management programs by our consultant, but also to have the council have a discussion with regards to appropriate, traffic calming devices that they would like to have included in the town of Atherton's policy, and which ones they don't. And so, that's going to be the primary focus of tomorrow night's agenda item, is to go through the various traffic calming devices and have the council provide directions on which ones they're interested in including. Once we get that direction, then the consultant will put together a draft policy document. Once complete, then we will bring that to this committee and have the consultant review and share that document, and we can get feedback from the transportation committee. And then we'll probably then also probably have a community meeting to share the information and then get feedback from the community, and then bring it back to City Council for council review and adoption.
Right, so I think it would be important that the committee be aware of when it's going to be presented to the council. Is there a date yet?
Well, it's tomorrow night, and that's,
it's
and that's the
tomorrow
report that we distributed to you earlier.
Oh, okay, yeah, well, I just got that and I didn't really have a chance to digest it, so.
And, you know, we're also involving Menlo Park Fire District. And so tomorrow night, they will be here at the council also because they have a PowerPoint that they like to share with council as well.
Okay,
And the PowerPoint that our consultant is going to be giving, it's attached to the report that you have in front of you.
great. Well, I'll certainly try to attend tomorrow night and encourage if John,
I can't make it tomorrow night.
Larry, I don't know.
I don't know yet.
Okay. Bill will probably be there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's important, and I don't know whether, I know Gary's in the east, but I don't know about Jim. Does anybody know whether he's in town or not? I mean, I guess what we should do is, I can't send them emails myself, but maybe Jennifer or Ed or Mike could alert the whole committee to what's happening tomorrow night.
Yeah, Mike, you wanna send out an email just to remind everybody?
Probably be best for Jennifer to do it
Okay,
because she has everyone's email, you know, so,
we'll get it done. Jennifer's actually out of town, but we'll figure out a way to let everybody,
Okay.
even if I have to pick up the phone, and try to call Jim.
Okay, thank you. I think it's important to get as many committee members there as we can to hear that. Good, thank you. The status of the pedestrian hybrid beacon?
and as the committee knows, there's actually 3 pedestrian hybrid beacons under design right now on El Camino Real. 2 of them is part of a countywide project by Caltrans. Those 2 are at the intersections of El Camino Real and Isabela, and El Camino Real and Alejandra. And as far as that project, that is continuing to move along per the Caltrans schedule, where they anticipate completing design of that project. And again, this is a countywide project for San Mateo County. They're scheduled to complete their plans by the summer of 2016, so about a year from now. And then going out to bid with their project sometime in the winter of 2016, which, again, countywide project. So we're not sure when the 2 pedestrian hybrid beacons would be, where that would fall with the construction schedule. So what we've been saying is that, we're hopeful and we anticipate that those 2 pedestrian hybrid beacons will be operational by the spring of 2017. Okay. As a result of that schedule, and the city council wanted to accelerate pedestrian hybrid beacon on El Camino Real. So the town of Atherton has funded the design for another pedestrian hybrid beacon at Almondral. And one of the reasons why Almondral was selected is because that's the location of Fire Station 3, I believe, and because a pedestrian hybrid beacon would be helpful to the fire department as well, because we can provide preemption on that signal, which would stop the cars on El Camino to allow for the fire trucks to have a safer entry onto El Camino Real. So that project is moving forward at a very brisk pace. In fact, 85% plans have been completed, and they've been submitted to Caltrans for review, because El Camino Real is a state highway, and in order for us to construct our project, we need to get an encroachment permit from Caltrans. And so we've been working very closely with Caltrans to try to do whatever we can to expedite the Caltrans review. And we're still hopeful of getting an encroachment permit, which will allow us to bid the project in the October-November timeframe of this year. And if we are able to get an encroachment permit in that timeframe, then we would expect that construction of the pedestrian hybrid beacon at Almondral would start sometime in early 2016, with it being operational in the spring of 2016, which would be at least a full year prior to the two that's part of the Caltrans project. Because there's going to be a benefit of having preemption for the fire department, staff has also had discussions with the fire district about cost sharing for the costs of that beacon. And so we will be putting together an agreement which will be going to both the City Council and the Menlo Park Fire District Board to get the commitment for that cost sharing.
That's all great news. I assume Caltrans is supportive of this.
Caltrans is supportive, and they are trying to expedite. They've been very open to us having out of sequence meetings so that we can preview plans with them, so that they become more familiar with our project. So they've been agreeable and open. So we've had some additional meetings with Caltrans to again try to expedite that review process.
One other question. If there's been talk about El Camino maybe becoming what do they call it? Where it might go to 4 lanes rather than 6 along most, and be really updated to be pedestrian and bike friendly and all that, and not just in our area, but over a big length of El Camino. So would the design of these pedestrian beacons be compatible with changes like that in the future?
Yes. From our discussions with Caltrans, the reality of reducing lanes from 6 to 4, I don't really think that's a reality. But in spite of that, one of the things that the City Council also approved for this year is they provided funding of $200,000 for this fiscal year and an additional $100,000 for the next fiscal year, for a total of $300,000 to do what we're calling a complete street study of El Camino Real within the town of Atherton. So to take a look at things that can be done within the existing right-of-way, still providing 6 lanes of traffic, but to try to make it more pedestrian and bicycle friendly.
Good. Something needs to be done there, but
Right.
yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? The status of the bicycle pedestrian master plan?
Yeah, so the master plan has been approved by the City Council, and so the next step was actually to implement the master plan. And so a consultant was brought on board several months ago by the City Council, and they're at work. And basically where we are there is the first part of it is going to be to implement the Class 3 bike routes. And Class 3 is just signage, basically. And Class 3 is where the bicyclists will be sharing the road with the cars. And so it's basically, signs and pavement markings. That project is about 90% complete from a design standpoint. And then in addition to that, as part of the consultant contract, they were doing a feasibility to identify the feasibility of implementing the Class 2 and the Class 1 bike routes designated in the master plan. And so that's part of this scope of work as well. We are we're scheduling a community meeting to share with the community the Class 3 bike pass and how it's going to be signed and marked. And that meeting is scheduled for August 11th. So it's coming up in the next 3 weeks or so, where we will be having a community meeting to basically have a workshop about the implementation of the Class 3 bike route.
How are you going to advertise that meeting?
I think the way the town always advertises, basically all residents will be getting a postcard, as well as we're going to be providing information on the town's website.
Okay, good. Any questions or comments? No? The next item I notice I'm down for on the Discussion of Transportation Committee work program. I'll pass that back to you, Mike, and actually I think we can do that as part of moving into the new business, because in our last meeting you recommended that if we really want to get a handle on the growth impacts of the Bay Area on Atherton, that we should quantify it, learn and understand the legal limitations and we could complete studies if the town of Atherton chooses to fund those. So I know that some early data is coming in as part of the traffic counts and so forth.
Yes, I mean, as part of, needing to get some data for both the neighborhood traffic management program and for the implementation of the bike ped master plan, we basically, I think for the first time, where we took traffic volumes throughout the town. We took it, I think a total of, we took counts, 24-hour counts at 18 or 20 different street segments, and those have been completed. They were done back in early May of this year, prior to school getting out. And after getting the results of that and kind of plotting on that on a map, we found that, well, we should have added some additional areas. And so, because initially we were not getting counts on El Camino Real because it's a state highway, and initially we weren't getting counts on Alameda de Las Pulgas, so we've identified some additional areas, getting additional counts on El Camino Real, getting additional counts on Alameda, and although we did get some counts on Middlefield, to get 1 or 2 additional counts on Middlefield. So, we will be doing that, but we're holding off until school starts because, we want to do it when school's back in session because that's when, traffic will be more normalized, I guess. And so, but by doing that, the town will have a good baseline of traffic volumes.
Good. So at some point, I assume the committee can get kind of a synopsis of what the data looks like.
Yes, and in fact, we're trying to also get it to where we can post it up on the website as well.
Great. Okay. Good. Any questions or comments? Sort of doubling back to the Transportation Committee work program too. I think tonight we had a crosswalk request, and I think we need to kind of react to that and discuss maybe getting an item on an agenda and looking at it, not just that one location, but are there other places that we're having particular issues with pedestrians and cyclists?
Well, as part of the feasibility of the bike ped master plan, the consultant is taking a look at how to get across Middlefield, El Camino Real. And so if it isn't already part of their work program, we will have them take a look at the intersection of Watkins because that is a good comment. That there is an existing crosswalk, and although probably today there isn't a whole lot of pedestrians crossing just because it's just people don't feel safe to do it. But that's one of the intersections we'll have our consultant take a look at to have them make recommendations on how to improve that crosswalk.
Okay. There are two other locations that people have brought to my attention on Middlefield. I get input mostly from Lindenwood people, and that is at the Linden Gate, which is Linden and Glenwood. That a lot of people try to cross there, and there's no crosswalk. Now, I don't hear people saying they want flashing lights or anything, but maybe just this
If the
paint.
students are going to be riding on the correct side of the road, then the kids from Lindenwood need to be able to cross
Right.
back over.
Right.
And that's something, if this committee is interested in, because that is beyond really the scope of the bike ped master plan.
Okay.
And, because really what that's about is taking a look at, if staff, thinks we ought to be increasing the number of crosswalks. And from a traffic engineering standpoint, I would say the answer is no. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't take a look at it. I mean, the way that you would do that is the very first thing is you would take ped counts. And, and again, as part of the bike ped master plan, part of that feasibility is taking a look at the potential of a class 1, right, on the, I guess that would be on the east side of Middlefield.
The west side. Well, you mean for,
On the Lindenwood side of Middlefield, right, because there's an existing,
well, but I think what you were suggesting was that if people were riding on the west side, coming from Encinal, for example, and then wanted to turn into Lindenwood on their bikes.
well, if they're coming from Encinal, they should cross at the signal at Encinal, and then take, and then be on the correct side.
But they can't ride in the bike lane, they'd have to take the path, because they'd
Correct,
be.
and that's part of that class 1, taking a look to see if
Okay.
it's feasible to implement a class 1. But, that's where we would want pedestrians to cross, is at the signal.
Mhm. I know there are a lot of people who cross, who are just walking across from the Linden Gate. But in any case, maybe we, as part of, or maybe we just look at the crosswalk situation. I mean, I don't know how much it costs to paint a crosswalk and maintain it.
It's really not about the cost. It's really about putting crosswalks at uncontrolled intersections. Because then what you get is what we have on El Camino Real, where we have 5 crosswalks at uncontrolled intersections, and now we're starting to trying to figure out how to control those intersections through pedestrian hybrid beacons. So, as far as determining if a crosswalk is appropriate, it's really not a matter of the cost. It's really more about, is there a demand, and is there a way to safely get pedestrians across the street
Mhm.
at that location?
Mm-hmm. Of course, there's also the issue of if it's made safer, the demand might go up. That a lot of people might be avoiding it now, which I know is true at Watkins. People going to the park, a lot of people just won't walk there with their kids, although they'd like to.
Right, and so then the question is, how do you make it safer?
Right.
Well, by simply putting a crosswalk across the street doesn't make it safer.
Mm-hmm.
And really, to make it safer, you need something, a traffic signal obviously makes it safer. A pedestrian hybrid beacon makes it safer, because both those devices requires vehicles to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, flashing lights can make it,
They help.
they help because it brings driver awareness. But that's really the issue from a traffic engineering standpoint, is by just putting a crosswalk at an uncontrolled intersection, that's not making it safer for the pedestrian.
Okay. Then, let's see, we've done the crossing flags, so the pedestrian bicycle advisory committee?
Yes, and that's just to report to this committee that at the June meeting of the City Council, they did appoint a 5-member bicycle pedestrian advisory committee. And those 5 members actually can go on the town's website, and they're on the website. And that committee, we are actually having the first meeting of that committee a week from tonight, on July 21st, will be the first meeting of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Good. Okay. Questions? Comments? If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the staff reports and the police unit, traffic unit. Sergeant, are you taking that?
We'll do for May of 2015 first. And in May, we had 2 traffic complaints, and both of the complaints are listed there, along with the amount of time we spent in the area and the results that we achieved. There was 1 arrest for driving under the influence in May, and it was not a result of a traffic collision. No truck stop details were performed in May. Officer Marks, Officer Boyle, and Officer Carpenter were assigned to traffic and used their motorcycles during the month of May. For collisions, we had 5 collisions in May. 1 collision involved injuries, 3 were hit and runs, and none were caused by anyone who was driving under the influence. And all of those collisions are listed right there for you. And we had 684 traffic stops in the month of May. Going on to June, we had 4 traffic complaints in the month of June, and again, those are all listed there with the amount of time we spent and the results we achieved. 2 arrests were made for driving under the influence during the month of June, and none were due to traffic collisions. No truck stop details in June. The traffic officers were on their motorcycles. We had 11 traffic collisions in the month of June. 2 involved injuries, 2 were hit and runs, and again, none were caused by anybody who was driving under the influence, and all of those traffic collisions are listed there. And for traffic contacts, we had 574.
Yeah, it's an impressive report, and particularly on the, yes, John.
I can't believe that you guys do such great work. You know, I've been on this committee a long time. I remember the days when the mayor was on our committee, and we'd get, in a month, 30 speeding tickets for the whole department, and about 45 written. In May, you have 247 citations, and that's the major complaint is down, the speed, as we know. And you have 134 written, that means a total of, I wrote it down here, 300 stops. In June, I don't know if you people see this, June, the speeding citations, 196. We're getting 30 for a whole police department years ago. And the written warnings, 119. I mean, it's just phenomenal, Sergeant, what you guys are doing this.
Thank you.
You and the chief.
Thank you. Yeah, the department clearly has a primary focus on this traffic issue and target it. And the crossroads, I think, is going to help us
But speeding
even
has always
more.
been the complaint, you know. It hasn't changed. But the complaining years ago, 1 ticket a day for the whole department, and you guys are doing 10 times as much. It's unbelievable.
Well, I think the other thing, and we were just talking about this today, the traffic officers out there are selling those citations. We're not generating complaints. People aren't calling me up or calling the sergeants up complaining about the traffic safety. And quite a few people are walking away with a smile on their face. And because the officers are taking the time to explain to them, hey, this is why we're doing it. Here's the problem. Here's how you can help us. Now, not everybody's driving off with a smiley face, but a lot of them are, and we get very few, if any, complaints on traffic citations.
And the citation previously, the written warnings would be more than the citations written. And that was a complaint too, you know. And every one of the written warnings, there has to be a stop made and so on. But I can't believe how great you guys are doing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
One thing I noticed that was different about this report than before is the number of mobile vehicles in the rear enders. Hadn't really seen that before. I assume it's somebody coming up on a line of stop traffic and they're shoving cars into each other.
Right, so one car hits another, and then the car that got hit moves forward and hits the car in front of it.
So they must really be moving.
Either moving or the person that got hit first takes their foot off the brake and gets pushed into the car in front of them.
Yeah, that's unusual, isn't it? I mean, we haven't had that many.
We haven't had a lot of 3 and 4 car rear end collisions. Last month, there were quite a few collisions last month, and we had one. Looking at it, we had 1, 2, 3. We had 3 rear enders that had multiple vehicles in them.
Can you attribute it to anything? I mean, for example, there's been road work on Middlefield, which I think has backed up traffic more. Is it stuff like that, do you think? Or?
I think a lot of it is just people traveling too fast and not paying attention to their driving, and not paying attention to the road ahead of them.
Okay, any other questions? If there's no other business, our next meeting will be Tuesday, September 8th.